How to replace motherboard and CPU in XPS 8700. Before removing this cover, you need to take the screw out. You need to screw it out. Screw it off. That graphics card looks lovely in there. So take the graphics card out, unscrew that screw, and then take out that metal piece, it'll come right off. And then pull out that little piece there on the graphics card mount, and then you can take the graphics card out. Be careful not to hit anything on the motherboard with the graphics card. Rip the cable and pull up to remove it. There's a little latch on the cable. You need to press on it in order for the cable to unplug, in order to take out the cable. Take that out, you need to unscrew a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there, and a little bit there. You should unscrew one screw the whole time, because it's using screws. I mean, it's using springs, and if you take one screw out, then it'll be uneven, and it can break it. Carefully remove these delicate wires. To remove the RAM, take out those little pieces holding the RAM, and then you can take the RAM out. When working with a computer, you should do everything carefully to not damage anything. Unplug the CPU cable and unplug the fan cable. Unplug the power supply cable. Taking a CPU out, it's similar to opening a jar, a glass jar. Carefully grab onto the CPU and remove it. It has delicate parts. And also don't touch the other side of the CPU, or it can result to corrosion. The motherboard on this one is being removed because this motherboard it had 2 broken pins and 2 broken USB ports, and the sound didn't work. So it's being replaced with this motherboard. This is the first time I'm doing this, but I have some experience already because I rebuilt my laptop. Don't plug it, don't tighten the screw too tight, otherwise you can break the motherboard. If that screw is not tight enough, the graphics card will not go in. That's the Wi-Fi card. You place it in there similar to RAM. I use the same Wi-Fi card from the original motherboard. Make it easier. Took a picture of how the wires were connected, and I looked at it on my laptop so I know how to connect the wires back. It's a good thing to do. Otherwise, you don't know what wires go where. It's impossible to plug this type of wire in the wrong way because it has a missing pin and a matching missing pin on the motherboard. To put the RAM in, take those little things out on both sides of the RAM mount. Put the RAM in and then press it on one side to click in, and then press on the other side to click in. Those things on both sides of the RAM will go onto the RAM by themselves when you click the RAM in. The best, cheapest CPU for an XPS 3700 is the 4790, and the max supported CPU is the 4790K, which is only a few percent more powerful. Before you install 4770K, 4790K or 4790K in XPS 8700, you should update the BIOS or the computer will not post or work. To update the BIOS, go to Dell support site, type in the model number XPS 8700 and download the BIOS update. The old version of the BIOS is not programmed to work with those CPUs, so you need to download the newest version, which is programmed to work with those CPUs. It's a good idea to clean the computer before closing it up, before finishing the installation of everything. Then shut off your computer during BIOS update. Let it finish. If you shut off computer during update, the computer will be permanently broken. Before installing the CPU, you should also clean the thermal paste from the cooler. I didn't show how to install a CPU, but you can find tutorials. Here I applied some thermal paste onto the CPU. I did this the first time on a desktop CPU. I've done it on laptop CPUs, but not on desktop. So I didn't do it correctly, and then I did not use that thermal paste job later on. Carefully mount the cooler on top of the thermal paste and then screw in each screw just a little bit at a time. No need to focus, no need to screw a lot of times on one screw. It should be balanced. One screw at a time. A little bit, one screw at a time. Give every screw a few spins, and then go to the next screw. That will also distribute the thermal paste evenly onto the CPU if the right amount of thermal paste is applied onto the CPU. This is the only tutorial on how to replace motherboard and CPU. This is the only tutorial on how to replace a motherboard in XPS 8700. And the outro is unnecessary. Bzzz.